I speak of a red car, and at that moment, red car comes here. Now, I hadn't seen it. It's impossible because it was behind the building. In this moment, the red car appears. The Rice experiment proves that these cases are not mere chance.
Sometimes the universe whispers, and sometimes it arranges entire worlds to place a single sign before your eyes. Osho knew that synchronicity wasn't coincidence. It was a living language, a glance at the clock, a chance encounter, a symbol repeating until it demands your attention. These aren't accidents. They are threads pulling you toward the reality you've already summoned within. To use them is to step into rhythm with existence itself, where manifestation stops being effort and becomes flow. Osho's hidden method reveals how desire doesn't need to be forced. It only needs to be aligned with the dance already happening around you. The hidden language of reality. There are moments in life when something uncanny slips through the cracks of ordinary time. You think of a friend you haven't spoken to in years, and within hours their message appears on your screen. You stumble on a book that speaks directly to the question you've been carrying in silence. The rational mind says, coincidence. But something deeper whispers, no, this is a message. Osho often reminded his listeners that existence is not a machine built on accident and blind mechanics. It is, in his words, a cosmic dance. In a dance there is rhythm, pattern and intimacy. The steps of one partner shape the movements of the other. Life, then, is not just happening to us. It is moving with us, inviting us to notice the choreography. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, gave this mystery a name, synchronicity. He described it as meaningful coincidence, where an inner state finds its reflection in an external event with no visible chain of cause and effect. For Jung, these moments hinted that the psyche and the world are woven of the same fabric. Osho expanded this idea further. Life itself is conscious, he said, and when you move with awareness, existence mirrors that awareness back to you in the form of synchronicity. But how do we even begin to read this language? Most people walk through their days as though deaf to it, missing the signs that glimmer in plain sight. We are taught to trust only what is measurable, predictable, and logical. Yet the hidden language of reality speaks in symbols, in timing, in patterns so subtle they escape the calculating mind. It is like music too delicate for the ear but felt in the body. The Sufis told a story of the reed flute, cut from its bed and hollowed to sing. The flute's lament is not its own, but the breath of the divine moving through it. When the reed is empty, the melody flows unhindered. This parable holds the secret. When we, like the reed, allow ourselves to be hollowed of noise and resistance, life's breath plays through us. Synchronicities arise not from control, but from surrender to the greater harmony. If you listen closely, you will notice that synchronicities often arrive at thresholds, moments of choice, doubt, or transformation. They are not casual ornaments scattered at random. They come like a friend knocking softly on your door when you are most in need of guidance. Jung's scarab beetle story is one example. A patient was describing a dream of a golden scarab when, in that very moment, a beetle tapped against the window. The moment cracked her rigid rationalism, allowing something deeper to break through. Osho would have called this existence stepping in to support awakening. When seen this way, synchronicity is not superstition. It is intimacy. It is proof that your inner world and the outer world are not two, but one. The dream and the waking event, the thought and the unfolding scene are threads of the same tapestry. To dismiss these moments as just chance is like standing before a poem written to you and refusing to read. Still, we must tread carefully. The mind is clever and eager to claim meaning where there is none. Not every bird that crosses the sky is an omen. Not every overheard word is a secret code. The difference lies in the feeling, a shock of aliveness, a sudden inner recognition that comes with true synchronicity. Osho urged his followers not to chase these moments, but to remain alert, receptive, and grounded. The signs will come when the dance requires them. To live with this awareness is to live in dialogue with reality. Imagine walking a path where the world itself is conversing with you, responding to your intentions, arranging encounters that open doors. A forgotten song on the radio may carry the answer you've been seeking. A stranger's kindness may be the bridge to your next chapter. These are not accidents. They are the footprints of the dance around you. The hidden language of reality is not deciphered through analysis, but through presence. To be present is to stand still enough to feel the rhythm, to recognize the whisper in the noise. Osho called it trust. Trust that existence is not against you, but for you, weaving synchronicities as guideposts for the journey. So the question is not whether life is speaking, but how we can attune ourselves to hear its hidden rhythm. Tuning the inner frequency. Silence is not emptiness, it is tuning. When the world grows noisy and the mind restless, the signals of synchronicity blur into static. Osho taught that meditation is not about running from life, but about settling enough to hear the fine strings beneath the noise. The quieter the mind becomes, the more delicate vibrations can be felt, like a musician adjusting a single note in the middle of an orchestra. In a small monastery, a Zen monk once told his students, "The still pond reflects the moon, the troubled water does not." That single line carried more than poetic beauty. It revealed the secret of perception. When our inner pond ripples with worry, thought, or craving, life's reflections appear distorted. But when stillness is allowed, the smallest shimmer becomes visible. This stillness is the first step to hearing the rhythm behind synchronicity. In that kind of clarity, even the smallest sign, an unexpected word, a shift in the wind, a passing glance, can be felt as part of the greater pattern. Attention is power, though most of us scatter it without care. Psychologists call this the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, the sudden surge of noticing something after first becoming aware of it. You buy a red car, and suddenly the streets overflow with red cars. Did the cars multiply overnight? No. Your awareness sharpened, and what was always there rushed into focus. Osho would say that desire works in the same way. Once you tune inward, reality begins mirroring that vibration everywhere. The more refined your awareness, the more precise these reflections become, as though existence itself adjusts its tone to match the frequency you are holding within. Not all vibrations are clear at first. Some arise from fear, others from conditioning, and still others from the deep longing of the soul. The work is to sense the difference. Meditation does not erase desire, it purifies it. Sitting in stillness, you begin to feel which desires are echoes of old wounds and which pulse with the rhythm of something true. To tune your frequency is not to chase, but to listen. The danger lies in confusion. A restless mind confuses noise with guidance. It grasps at every coincidence, trying to force meaning where none exists. Osho often warned against this trap, reminding seekers that chasing signs is like shouting at the ocean. You only drown out the tide's natural song. Real synchronicity requires no strain. It comes when your frequency is matched with life itself, not when the mind is desperate to make everything significant. Think of desire as a hum in the body. Sometimes it is faint, like a half-remembered song drifting through a dream. At other times, it roars with urgency. The hum itself is not the problem, it is part of being alive. What matters is whether we allow the hum to settle into harmony, or whether we let it spiral into static. Awareness acts as a tuning fork, helping the inner vibration match the larger field. When this happens, synchronicities do not merely appear, they become inevitable. When we finally attune, the world seems to respond differently. Encounters arrive with uncanny precision, words overheard strike at the heart of our questions, and paths that once seemed blocked open with ease. It is not magic in the childish sense, it is resonance. Just as two strings tuned to the same pitch vibrate together, the inner and outer worlds hum as one. The shift is subtle but undeniable. You begin to notice that synchronicity does not obey the calendar or clock, but its own mysterious timing. It may come in a delayed whisper or a sudden cascade. What matters is the listening. Osho described it as being porous, allowing life to move through you without resistance, like wind through an open window. In that porousness, synchronicity slips through with perfect clarity. Each act of awareness deepens the attunement. A pause before reacting, a breath before speaking, a moment of stillness in the middle of chaos, all these sharpen the ear to life's hidden music. Slowly, desire is no longer something you wrestle with, but something you feel as a tone, guiding you like a compass needle turning toward the unseen. From here, a new mystery arises. If tuning the frequency allows synchronicity to align around us, then the question that follows is, where do these desires originate in the first place? The birthplace of desire. Every desire begins as a spark inside, a stirring that feels both personal and strangely impersonal. It moves through the body like a quiet current, carrying a sense of direction even before the mind knows what to call it. Osho spoke of this inner movement not as greed or hunger, but as a seed waiting for the right soil. To him, desire was sacred when held in awareness, because it was not just yours, but existence itself moving through you. The Hindu mystics gave this seed a name, Icha Shakti, the power of will. It is the energy of creation, the divine impulse that first imagined stars, rivers, and human hearts. When Icha Shakti flows through us, it takes the shape of desire. Every authentic desire, when traced to its origin, carries a fragrance of the eternal, as if the universe itself whispered it into being. To treat it as something shameful or to suppress it entirely is to turn away from the very pulse of creation. Osho urged seekers to honour this current, but to stay awake enough not to confuse it with the cravings born of conditioning. Longing has always carried a double edge. It can enslave when it comes from fear, or liberate when it carries the voice of the soul. The poet Rumi once wrote, "Longing is the voice of the divine calling you home." In that light, what you desire is not random. It may be the compass pointing you toward the path your soul agreed to walk. Awareness turns longing from addiction into guidance. What clouds this truth is our confusion between borrowed desires and authentic ones. A borrowed desire is like wearing someone else's shoes. It looks convincing, but it never fits. The world tells us what to want: status, wealth, approval, and so much of our energy is spent chasing phantoms. But when a desire arises from within, it has a different flavour. It feels alive, not imposed. Osho's invitation was to pause and ask, is this truly mine? Or is this something I have been taught to want? The birthplace of true desire is quiet, almost hidden. It doesn't shout, it waits. Like a seed under the soil, it germinates in silence until attention waters it. Meditation helps us notice these subtle stirrings before they are buried beneath noise. By tuning inward, as we explored before, we find that some desires fade when observed, revealing they were never ours to begin with, while others grow stronger, pulsing with an undeniable truth. When you recognize a desire that belongs to the soul, it carries with it a kind of inevitability. You may not know how it will manifest, but you feel the certainty that it wants to come into form. This is where the sacredness lies, not in demanding life to obey the ego, but in recognizing that the soul itself planted the seed and will weave the path for its unfolding. To ignore it is to deny your own aliveness. Awareness changes everything. The same desire seen unconsciously can become an obsession. Seen clearly, it becomes devotion. Greed grasps and hoards. Sacred desire expands and flows. One contracts, the other opens. When you are awake to this difference, you stop fearing desire and begin to trust it as an ally. This shift alone changes how synchronicity gathers around you. Imagine desire as the hum we spoke of earlier, but now recognized as the voice of creation itself. When honored, it becomes magnetic, shaping encounters, opportunities, and moments that feel impossibly aligned. When dishonored, it becomes static, drawing you deeper into frustration and confusion. Osho's wisdom was simple. Desire is not the enemy. It is the raw material of manifestation, purified through awareness. Some mystics describe desire as the hidden handwriting of the soul, etched upon the heart long before the mind can read it. When approached with awareness, these inner stirrings are not random whims but invitations, pointing us toward experiences that carry meaning for our growth. The Hindu idea of Icha Shakti, the power of will, reminds us that every genuine longing contains within it a spark of divine energy, waiting to be awakened through conscious participation. If the soul plants the seed and awareness tunes it into harmony, then reality itself stirs, ready to weave synchronicities around it. The web of signs and symbols. Reality is not mute. It speaks in whispers, in patterns, in sudden appearances that seem too precise to be random. What looks like a coincidence to the ordinary eye begins to glow with meaning once the heart is tuned. The world becomes less like a backdrop and more like a living oracle, each moment threaded with signals guiding us closer to the unfolding of our soul's desire. Stories from many cultures remind us that existence has always spoken in symbols. Among African traditions, it is said that ancestors send their messages through animals crossing your path, or dreams arriving with unusual clarity. A bird appearing at the window, or a serpent moving silently in the grass, was never just an event. It was a sentence in the language of the unseen. These signs were not dismissed but carried carefully, weighed for the wisdom they might hold. Jung once told of a woman in therapy who struggled to move beyond the walls of her rational mind. As she spoke of her resistance, a scarab beetle tapped at the window. In Egyptian symbolism, the scarab represented rebirth. To Jung, this moment cracked open the patient's defences because the symbol matched her inner state so perfectly that it could not be ignored. It was not proof for the intellect, it was nourishment for the soul, a synchronistic spark that invited transformation. The signs around us may not always arrive so dramatically. Often they are quieter, almost ordinary, until our awareness sharpens. A chance encounter, a phrase overheard at the right moment, the way a book falls open to a page that answers the very question we've been carrying. These are not tricks of the mind alone, though psychology tries to explain them away. They are the subtle choreography of a field that responds when desire and awareness begin to harmonize. Sometimes the body itself becomes the stage where symbols appear. A sudden shiver, an unexplainable calm, a feeling of heaviness before entering a room. These are also part of the web. Just as dreams or animals can carry messages, so can the subtle responses of your own being. Osho often reminded his listeners that the body is not separate from existence. It is tuned like an instrument, vibrating to signals long before the mind understands. Osho encouraged seekers to live alert, not in a tense or paranoid way, but with a playful attentiveness, to walk through life as if existence is speaking to you directly, because it is. When the eyes are dulled by habit, the signs blur into background noise. But when awareness is fresh, every detail can shimmer with relevance. The universe doesn't hide its guidance, it waits for us to notice. Yet there is caution in this path. Not every flicker of coincidence is a message. The danger lies in projecting meaning onto everything, turning daily randomness into obsession. The African elders who read signs in the world did not act impulsively on every bird's flight. They listened, waited, observed whether the symbol repeated, whether it echoed something already stirring in the heart. Signs are less about predicting events, and more about deepening trust in the invisible connection between your soul and the world it inhabits. Patterns begin to reveal themselves with time. A dream symbol shows up again in waking life. A particular number follows you across days, locations, and situations. The repetition is what turns noise into signal. Just as Jung noticed that synchronicity shocks us because of its meaningful timing, Osho suggested that such moments are mirrors, reality reflecting our own inner vibration to us in ways we cannot ignore. Mystics have often described life as a weaving loom, the threads of the unseen constantly intersecting with our path. What seems random is often part of a design too vast for the mind to measure. When we begin to trust this design, signs stop feeling like riddles to solve, and more like invitations to walk further into alignment. The web is always alive, shimmering with possibility, yet only the awake can feel its gentle pull. It starts as a subtle wondering. If the world is full of signs, how do we know which ones are genuine guides and which are distractions? Recognizing true synchronicity. Not every flicker of coincidence carries the weight of destiny. Some are simply the echoes of a busy mind, painting patterns where none exist. The challenge lies in sensing when life itself is moving closer to you, when the event carries a depth that resists explanation. This is where the language of synchronicity separates from the noise of projection. There is a distinct texture to a true sign. It does not flatter the ego or promise instant gratification. Instead, it arrives with a quiet authority, almost like a bell sounding in the chest. Osho pointed out that real synchronicity leaves you in silence, even if only for a moment. The mind pauses, stilled by recognition, as though existence has leaned close to whisper, "Yes, this is for you." In those pauses, the boundaries between inner and outer blur, and you sense that your private life and the life of the cosmos are part of the same unfolding moment. The Taoists spoke of Wu Wei, action that flows effortlessly without force. True synchronicities move with that same current. They don't demand struggle. They don't pull you into frantic calculation. They feel like a door opening without effort, a gentle alignment rather than a desperate chase. Projection, on the other hand, strains, grasps and clings, always trying to make the world fit, a story it has already decided upon. Projection often feels urgent, as if something will be lost if you do not act immediately, but true synchronicity carries no panic. It waits because it belongs to a larger rhythm. A fisherman's tale illustrates this well. He once tried to fight the river, rowing hard against the current until exhaustion left him stranded. Later he learned to surrender, allowing the current itself to carry him. The river was not an obstacle but a guide. So it is with synchronicity. To recognize the true from the false, you watch whether the current supports the movement or whether you are forcing against its flow. Stillness is the essential test. When a synchronicity appears, does it leave you restless and agitated, or does it deepen the breath? Osho urged his followers to sit with the sign, not to run after it immediately. If it dissolves under the light of silence, it was a shadow of the mind. If it grows clearer, more radiant, then it belongs to the greater field of reality responding to your inner state. Silence strips away wishful thinking, leaving only what vibrates with truth. Sometimes recognition comes as a shock. The chance meeting, the symbol appearing at precisely the right moment, the dream unfolding into waking life. In those moments, time feels strange, slowed down, thickened, more alive. This is not the mind's fantasy, but existence interrupting your routine. The aliveness itself is the marker, the way the event expands you rather than contracts you. Other times, it is subtler. A book you've carried for years suddenly reveals a line you never noticed. A phrase overheard in passing lands so deeply it shifts your course. The smallness of the event does not lessen its power. It is not the size of the sign that matters, but the resonance it creates inside you. Projection excites the surface. Synchronicity stirs the depths. Skepticism often asks whether we are simply inventing these meanings. Yet even the act of being moved, of being silenced, reveals that something larger is at play. Jung insisted that synchronicity was not a belief but an experience, one that defied logic yet carried its own undeniable authority. Osho echoed this by reminding seekers that trust must come not from blind faith, but from direct encounter. Only you can feel the difference, and the silence of awareness is the compass. It is the humility to admit that you are not the orchestrator of everything, but a participant in a dialogue far older and wiser than your personal plans. Recognizing synchronicity, then, is not about memorizing rules. It is about cultivating the sensitivity to feel when life is moving with you, rather than when you are pushing it. Wu Wei becomes more than a Taoist principle. It becomes a way of discernment, teaching you to lean into what flows and step back from what resists. The fisherman trusted the current. You're asked to trust the pulse of existence, and so the path begins to widen. Once the signs are recognized, how do we walk with them, work with them, and allow them to shape the manifestation of our deepest desire? The dance of alignment and action. Recognition is only the beginning. A sign may shimmer before you, but without response, it fades back into the background of daily life. Synchronicity is alive, but its aliveness requires participation. The dance begins the moment you step into rhythm with what has been offered. Sometimes the smallest response, a word spoken, a step taken, a silence held, becomes the hinge on which an entire chapter of life quietly turns. Momentum builds when awareness is joined by courage. It is easy to wait, to marvel at the symbols, and then retreat into hesitation. Yet Osho often said that existence mirrors consciousness. When you hesitate, life hesitates with you. When you step forward, life steps closer. The mirror reflects not only what you see, but how you move. Psychologists studying flow states discovered something striking. When people are fully engaged, the division between inner awareness and outer action dissolves. Time distorts. Effort feels effortless, and what once seemed impossible suddenly becomes natural. Synchronicity operates in a similar field. The doors appear, but it's only by moving through them that the flow deepens, carrying you into places your mind alone could never reach. Opportunities rarely arrive as loud declarations. They often whisper, a conversation that invites you further, a chance meeting that stirs recognition. The courage is in saying yes, even when uncertainty lingers. Life will not hand you guarantees, but it will hand you openings. To act in alignment is to honour them, in many. Traditions, hesitation at such moments is seen as missing a blessing, because the opening itself is alive, pulsing only for a time before it withdraws. At times, action feels like a risk. The heart pounds, the mind lists reasons to stay safe, yet the sign remains. Osho described this as life's invitation to live dangerously, not recklessly, but authentically. Synchronicity asks whether you trust the current enough to move with it, even when the waters ahead are unseen. Without that leap, desire remains an echo instead of a reality. There is a rhythm that develops between recognition and response. Like dancers listening to one another, you and existence begin to anticipate each other's steps. The more you trust, the more fluid the dance becomes. Miss a step and another will come. The music of synchronicity does not end, but it does wait for your willingness to join in. This rhythm requires both sensitivity and decisiveness. Too much sensitivity without movement leads to paralysis. Too much movement without sensitivity becomes noise. The balance lies in awareness first, then action. Not rushing blindly, but not lingering until the opening closes. The art is in feeling when the sign shifts from possibility into invitation. When aligned, the ordinary transforms. A simple phone call, a chance encounter, an unexpected idea. They cease to be accidents and become threads in the unfolding fabric. This is not magical thinking, but a deepened participation in life's intelligence. The world ceases to feel indifferent. It becomes intimate, responsive, alive with dialogue. Flow studies echo this. When people are immersed in tasks that match their abilities with just enough challenge, they experience fulfillment and expansion. Synchronicity asks for a similar balance, enough awareness to see, enough courage to act, and enough trust to let the next step reveal itself. In that space, desire is not forced but carried forward, almost as though reality itself wishes it to blossom. It is here that desire matures into dialogue, where what you long for begins to recognize you in return, weaving your steps into its own unfolding. There will be missteps, of course. At times you may act too soon or misread a signal. Even here the dance continues. Existence is forgiving. It reshapes, sends new openings, teaches through the rhythm itself. Every action, even the mistaken ones, becomes part of the choreography that refines your discernment. The real transformation happens in how you show up. You stop waiting for life to deliver perfection and begin to meet it as a partner. The courage to act, balanced with the awareness to notice, awakens the hidden potential within each moment. Existence reflects that back with synchronicities that grow more precise, more luminous, as though your trust teaches life how to respond. Once the dance is entered, another question quietly emerges. What if synchronicity is not just guiding us toward desires, but reshaping us into something entirely new? Synchronicity as teacher. The moment you step into the dance, the signs no longer feel like simple markers toward a goal. They begin to work on you, reshaping the way you see, softening the sharp edges of control, humbling the restless need to know. Synchronicity, in this sense, is less a delivery system for your desires, and more a teacher that chisels you into someone who can hold them with grace. Not every sign arrives to affirm you. Some come to slow you down, to remind you that haste can burn the very bridges you are meant to walk across. Others appear in the form of delays, detours, or even closed doors. These too are lessons. A Hasidic tale tells of a man who cursed his misfortune when denied work for the day, only to discover later that the workplace had collapsed, sparing his life. What looked like rejection was protection in disguise. Hidden blessings are often wrapped in the cloth of disappointment. The more one listens, the more one notices that synchronicity does not always answer desire with a yes. Sometimes the response is silence, or a redirection that feels like loss. Yet within this, a deeper patience is born. Each pause becomes part of the rhythm, teaching you that timing belongs not to the ego's urgency, but to a larger intelligence that sees beyond what you can grasp. Trust deepens, not because life always gives what you want, but because it teaches you to want differently. Buddhist teachings on dependent origination remind us that nothing arises on its own. Every event, every encounter is bound within a web of causes and conditions. Synchronicities are not floating miracles that appear out of nowhere. They are the ripples of unseen connections, surfacing in forms you can recognize. To see them clearly is to remember that you are not separate from the whole. Your longing touches everything, and everything touches back. Sometimes this interconnectedness arrives in the gentlest ways. You may find yourself remembering someone you have not spoken to in years, only for them to call that same evening. Or you may take a wrong turn, only to stumble upon the very place you needed to find. These moments are not accidents, but reminders. The boundary between you and the world is more porous than you once believed. Synchronicity also carries shadow. To treat it as mere magic for personal gain is to miss its teaching. The hunger to control outcomes or force signs into meaning can lead to illusion. What refines discernment is humility, the willingness to accept that not every door is meant for you, and not every symbol is a summons. This humility is what transforms manifestation from a child's wish list into a mature relationship with the unfolding of existence. The lessons rarely stop at the surface. They cut into deeper qualities: patience in waiting, courage in leaping, surrender in uncertainty. Each time you heed a sign, or wrestle with its ambiguity, you're changed. Even your disappointments become teachers, showing you where attachment still clings too tightly. Synchronicity does not just mirror your path, it reshapes the traveller. In this way, manifestation becomes less about acquiring, and more about aligning. You're not handed desires as trophies, you're guided into becoming the kind of person who can live them without losing yourself. The process itself ripens you, like fruit slowly sweetening on the branch, until what arrives is not just what you wanted, but what can now nourish you. There are moments when the lessons feel harsh, even merciless. A door closes, a dream dissolves, and you wonder whether the signs have abandoned you. But just as the Hasidic tale revealed, what blocks you today may be guarding you from a greater sorrow. The teacher does not flatter, it sharpens. The gift is rarely given without the discipline that makes you ready to hold it. Over time, you begin to notice that the very rhythm of synchronicity is molding you. It refines the way you move, listen, and wait. The dance is still there, but now it is teaching you its deeper steps, ones you did not even know existed until life itself placed them in your body. At this moment, the narrative reaches for the universal. What happens when desires and synchronicity serve not just the individual but the whole? Living as the synchronic soul. To live with synchronicity is to enter a deeper intimacy with life itself. No longer is it about looking for signs as if they are rare gems. Instead, the whole fabric of existence becomes luminous with meaning. Every moment holds a subtle hum, and you begin to recognize that nothing is wasted. Life itself becomes the meditation, walking, speaking, pausing, all carried by an undercurrent of listening. A shift occurs when synchronicity stops appearing as isolated incidents and reveals itself as the field you inhabit. The boundary between inner and outer softens until what you feel within is mirrored without. Thoughts lose their frantic urgency because you sense an intelligence larger than thought moving with you. Osho once said, "Existence is not against you," and in this way his words open a door. The signs do not mock or trick you, they are evidence that life is already leaning in your favour. The smallest details begin to shimmer differently. A word overheard in passing, the timing of a song, the presence of a bird crossing your path, all become part of a language that speaks in symbols rather than explanations. The Upanishads echo this mystery, whispering that the universe conspires with the soul. It is not only you who longs, the desire itself is reaching back, threading through the world to find you. In such a state, the obsession with control falls away. The mind, once desperate to orchestrate outcomes, softens into trust. Desire does not vanish, it ripens without pressure, like fruit swelling beneath the sun. You no longer demand that life bend to your will. Instead, you discover how your will can harmonize with life's deeper rhythm. This is resonance, not force. Of course, the signs are not always loud. Sometimes they are faint, hidden, almost imperceptible. Silence itself becomes a teacher. It asks for patience, reminding you that pauses are part of the music. In the stillness, you learn to rest instead of striving, to root instead of rushing. What seems like absence is often preparation, shaping you to receive what is to come. Living as a synchronic soul turns patience into participation. Each step, no matter how ordinary, becomes part of a greater choreography. Washing dishes, walking in the street, waiting in line, all of it begins to feel woven into the same dialogue that once seemed reserved for special moments. Work turns into prayer, rest into alignment, conversation into co-creation. The divide between sacred and ordinary dissolves. Slowly, the question of how do I manifest loses its weight. It is replaced by a quieter inquiry. How can I listen more deeply? The focus shifts from chasing outcomes to embodying presence. Desire is not an extraction from life, but a communion with it, allowing its hidden generosity to reveal itself in its own timing. This is where humility grows, not as self-denial, but as a recognition that you are part of a vast intelligence rather than its master. And yet, synchronicity never stops moving. What was once a single sign becomes a flowing dialogue. What was once a coincidence becomes a pattern. The more you live with awareness, the more the world itself feels like a companion, responding, guiding, shaping. It no longer feels like you are steering a ship alone through chaos. It feels as though existence is sailing with you, its winds filling your sails. The Hasidic mystics told stories of hidden blessings disguised as disruptions. A missed path, a sudden delay, a door that refuses to open. Each could conceal a blessing waiting to unfold. To the synchronic soul, even the detours are alive with meaning. Nothing is wasted. Everything instructs. The Buddhist idea of dependent origination illuminates this. Every condition gives rise to another. All things connected. Every step interwoven with countless unseen threads. As this way of living deepens, synchronicity ceases to feel like a method. It becomes the texture of existence itself. You're no longer a seeker who sometimes notices signs. You become a being who lives inside the dialogue, every breath a part of it. Life is not against you, it is with you, whispering in symbols, sculpting with silence, beckoning through chants. The path does not end here. Awareness does not close a chapter, it opens the next, where synchronicity continues speaking in ever more subtle ways. Thank you for watching. If this journey spoke to you, remember to like, subscribe, and share your reflections in the comments below.